Hello, something guys and gals. Now, having completed the long-awaited Tales from the Borderlands as a story, it's high time to get my Odd Architecture series kicked back into gear for the time being, as I plan another semi-big project in the interim. Continuing with the Half-Life 2 series of these kinds of videos, we continue covering the extended Hunter Chopper's chase sequence with D1_Canals_10, which should have considerably more to cover in comparison to the last map and video discussing said chase sequence. Not that I have any issues with the length of that video, as these videos are only as long or as short as I need to get my points across, but regardless, that's why it was so short. So with that, let's dig into another map once more. Alright, and now we are in. Now, what is interesting about this map over some of the other maps that I've covered is that I actually had to go in and add some props to it. This will be important as kind of a showcase for the things I'm going to talk about the map later on. But anyhow, let's just get right to it. So we'll continue forth, and obviously you're supposed to be chased by the Hunter Chopper, but obviously I have no target on, so it's not going to be an issue. Now, if we look above, once again, we have the notorious open gap with no mesh, and this will be very notable about this map because of the fact that there will be some sections where there will be meshes and other sections where there won't be, so just keep that in mind. We will continue on. We have this path to the left here, which is some kind of spillway, but again, you know, your suspension of disbelief kind of goes out the window as to whether the water would ever get to a point of being able to spill out here. But regardless, we go over here, and you know, obviously you go up on these planks with the airboat, but these little upraised sections don't really make a whole lot of sense architecturally, even if for the purpose of supposedly dispersing the water a little bit. You know, supposedly if the water even got to this high, and that'll be another discussion as we continue through this map. We go over here, and then over on this side we have the canal lock doors, and I think these are the same texture from D1 Canals 07, the initial canal lock area that you get stopped at, but I could be wrong. But what is interesting about these canal lock gates being at this level is, assume that the water gets up high enough where, you know, you have these pipes over here, means that more than likely the water would be overflowing on these gates. So they would literally be doing nothing to essentially dam the water, as it were. You know, on top of just the weird choice of having these weird upraised concrete sections going on. We have another section here, another spillway that is not particularly well textured, and in fact, I'm pretty sure this portion of the map is basically a leftover from the beta version of the canals. If I'm not mistaken, I could be absolutely wrong, but it does lend credence to the idea that this was initially going to be something more involved with the beta version of the canals, but just end up getting essentially left to the wayside. And then we go, well, before we go into this next section of tunnels, we have this little area that's not particularly well textured, but we have these guardrails and a few cars here, so possibly what this area was supposed to convey was a parking garage or parking area, but you have this small bridge with this little ramp here, which would suggest that it wouldn't really coincide all that well, because the amount of clearance for cars over here would be pretty small, especially given that there's basically nothing on the other side to convey a road or whatever, but that's besides the point. A lot of this is just out of bounds. And then we will continue here. We have this curved section where we have more of these gaps, but what is interesting about this curve is you have guardrails for each little section of the wall ceiling that it's covering. And obviously this is not well textured, but if you look up here, it almost starts to make you wonder if each one of these is supposed to be a road in of itself. But, you know, it could be a rail section where the centerpiece has it where you can, like, turn the, I forget what it's called, but you can turn the rail and, like, have the train go on different parts of the track, for all I know. Alright, and then moving on from that, we have this area here where you get kind of bombarded by the Hunter Chopper, and your only kind of respite is this little side section where it's technically a lambda cache. But with this being here, and this gate, would again suggest that the water should be much higher, like up to here, at least, but obviously that wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense for it to be that high up. But I don't know, because you have this line, this black line, to suggest that the water got about as high as here, maybe? Or was as high as here, which, if that is the case, then, again, this side passage wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to be there. Like, what is it servicing exactly? Is like a whole array of airboats supposed to come in and flood this area? Possibly not. And then over here, which is not exactly of major consequence, we have this truck here. Now you're probably wondering, well, what's the problem with this truck? Well, it must have fallen off from this side of the guardrail, as suggested by this truck and that car there, but obviously there's no damage to it. So the implication is that this truck just fell onto the side of this, I don't know what you would call this, like, trapezoidal, like, gap or whatever, like, but obviously it was just plopped there. It didn't just crash through on the guardrail. So again, it's just kind of like that idea of, like, a gunship just grabbing this truck and just plopping it here just for shits and gigs. And then immediately to the left, we have a series of fences that are blocking nothing. And I know they're blocking nothing because look at what they're blocking. And this is out of bounds too. Like, I don't know what reason, like, even in terms of gameplay, they would need to set fences here, but maybe they were just, again, just trying to do this for the sake of having textures and not just make it particularly plain. Because I can't imagine what, like, gameplay purpose there would be to have this here. And then moving on, we have another lambda cache here, and there's nothing out of the ordinary except for the fact that this lambda cache has a gap with a mesh on it. As I said, it's just they're very flip-floppy when it comes to whether they're going to have meshes in these gaps or not. And then we have this area where we have more bridges where I think Combine or CP officers rappel down and shoot at you. I could be wrong, but obviously no targets on, so I can't necessarily affirm that. We have a set of bridges where one of them, this one in particular, would collide with this, like, out-of-bounds destroyed piece of building or whatever, which does kind of lend idea to the notion that we're really out in the outskirts of City 17, with just kind of the decayed nature of that building, as well as another decayed portion of bridge near the end of this map. And then this second set of bridge would be colliding perpendicular to this bridge over here, as you can tell by the guardrails. So obviously that wasn't really of concern for them because, you know, the player's not going to be able to see from here. But obviously I can, so we just get to see all the little inconsistencies as we continue on. And then, more to the point, more meshes. Although this mesh is particularly large in comparison to some of the other meshes, to the point that I'm kind of convinced that they probably didn't need that. Oh, and I just realized that this mesh is not actually, it's not perfectly up. It's like, yeah, it's weird. It's not, like, part of it is curved downward, but I'm pretty sure you can't even see that in game. Oh wait, no, you can. Oh, that's interesting. It's almost like an optical illusion. It makes you think it's full, but it's not. Or maybe... That's very odd. I didn't even see that. Huh. Like, somebody actually went in and bothered to actually, like, bend this mesh so that it's not, like, perfectly, like, flush across this gap here. That's interesting. Well, anyhow, we'll move on, and we have more of these signal switches, which, like with the other signal switches in the previous canal maps, would suggest that the water level should be at this level. But obviously it's not supposed to be because, again, we're supposed to believe that the Combine have been, essentially sucking the water out of Earth, essentially causing it, like trying to irrigate the water out of Earth for their Dyson spear or whatever. But with these signal switches, it suggests again that the water should be at this level, which clearly it's not supposed to be. And then more to the point, we have more kind of just of the same random rubble. Like we have an oven here. I don't know why that oven would be there. And then more of these generators. I forgot what they were called in the game files, but like these weird tubs or like almost distilleries, almost, are just kind of plopped around too. And then we have this section where you are quite literally just guided along. Like this section, like these boards and these planks only service to guide you along to jump onto this dock here to get to the warehouse. And then more to the point, we have this crane, which is a familiar face from the previous map, where it's, only partially modeled, and its placement here is just as perplexing as the crane from the last map, because, the idea is that it's going to, plop down, containers along this stretch here, or maybe on these metal, shutters or roofs? I don't know. It's odd. And then, as we jump, we come across the warehouse, where you get a little brief respite from the Hunter Chopper, although there is a lot of things to discuss about the nature of this warehouse in of itself. Like, for example, the fact that it being this high would suggest that the water should be at level, but that's more to the point, because you probably have noticed that these two boats were not here in the original map, and I put them there as a reference point, because let's say that the water level is supposed to be at the level that it is. So let's say that this lower area is supposed to be kind of like a checkpoint. That the level of this dock area being as low as it is would not fit the clearance for basically all of the boat models that are present in Half-Life 2. And as a reference, I brought two of these fishing boats, and they're fishing boats in the game models, and they clearly would not be able to meet it. And even if I didn't have these two fishing boats here, to just prove my point, we have this fishing boat here, which obviously is bent downward, and obviously is just put there to keep you from just going through the chasm this way. But the fact that if I was to bring this right side up, it obviously would not be able to fit the clearance here. So I do not know what this warehouse thing is supposed to serve, and maybe this is just supposed to be a bridge for, forklifts or whatever to do whatever the fuck they want to do over here. I really don't know what this warehouse was supposed to be servicing in terms of its function. And, more to the point, we have this weird elevator lift thing, and obviously you're supposed to put the airboat in here and bring it. I think you're supposed to bring it down so that you can kind of have a clean escape from the Hunter Chopper. But, practically, I don't know what this would have served, unless maybe to just put cargo on it, bring it down, and then the people on the boats that could actually meet the clearance level could put the cargo on their boats, I think, to ferry them out. That's my best guess as to what this elevator lift was for. And then with all that, we will move on, and another thing I had to add was another airboat. Now, obviously, I haven't been using the airboat because using no-clip is faster, but I brought the airboat here because I need to be in the airboat for the next sequence to occur. And what do I mean? Well, when I go in the airboat, you got these Combine shells coming in, and one of them obviously hits the smokestacks. And you have to be in the airboat to do this, too, for this to occur. If you don't do this, it will not happen. So we'll get out, since we got that taken care of. And going back a little bit of ways, I just wanted that to get triggered. Obviously, there is a question as to whether the Combine deliberately, hit that smokestack to stop your approach, or that was just completely happenstance, because, you have the other three Combine shells that basically miss you, but it seems like like I said, it's weird as to whether that was deliberate or not. Going back, we have this other spillway, which is not of large consequence, but what I did find peculiar is you have these sets of roads, or the side of a road, which are not parallel to each other, and the poles are pointing the same way, as opposed to naturally converging in to light up the road. Meaning that they just took this, like, entity or texture of the pole and the guardrail and just copy pasted here and didn't really care about whether it was even parallel to it. As you can tell, it would eventually start to converge in on itself. So it's not even a road. It's just it's nonsense, as it were. And now back to the smokestack. Now, these smokestacks are obviously here just for the huge set piece, as clearly there is nothing about them that would be servicing anything. They wouldn't be functioning anything for them to be illicit in their use. Because obviously smokestacks are here to, help with like a factory, and obviously there's no factory nearby it. More to the point, these smokestacks are completely hollow. They don't have any ash. They don't have any smoke or cinders. So it could be that they've just been completely unused, and that's why the Combine hit them, because they don't care. But again, I don't know if that was their purpose or reason to hit it or not, to try to stop you. And again, along with that, we have these planks here that dock planes that, again, would suggest that the water should be around here. But obviously that isn't the case with some of the other examples that are contradictory to it. And like I said, I don't think we're going to be able to ever square the circle as to how high the water level in this game should be. And another interesting thing that I discovered about these smokestacks is they cast no reflections. And as you can see, maybe you can see through the reflection in the water, you don't see the smokestack on the other side of it, which means that this is not a model, it's an entity. And I think entities do not cast reflections in Source games. I could be wrong on that, but let's see. I'm trying to see if I don't think the bridges here, or maybe it's not entities, it might be textures don't cast reflections, but models do. Like, this is casting a shadow, or a reflection in the water, but, this piece of the smokestack is not. And the dock planks aren't either. So, just an interesting thing to notate when you're looking through the reflections in these games like that. And then the final section, we have this long stretch where you have to dodge this APC shooting rockets at you. And to the left here, we have this destroyed piece of bridge. Again, to suggest that we're in the real outskirts of City 17 now. It's not exactly well textured either, if you were to take a finer look at it, because clearly there's no road on either end of it. And more to the point of that, this APC basically would have no means to get here, like at least on road or tarmac. And I don't know if these things are particularly viable off-road. I mean, obviously you see them in the Highway 17 chapters, but obviously that's mostly flat grass and sand, so I don't know if they would be able to deal with a little bit more rocky terrain. So maybe they got here without the need for a road, but I kind of doubt that. And with that was everything regarding D1_canals_10. And that was that for that map, and as I said, there would be a lot for me to cover in regard to that map. Tune in next time as we continue through the Water Hazard chapter of Half-Life 2.